All right, hi everybody. I'd like to welcome you to our GGTC Through the Decades. We are very fortunate to have 3 decades of board members and past presidents join us to tell us about the history of our club that we love so much. Please feel free to use the chat for any questions you may have. We'll probably go by each decade and then have questions thereafter. Or feel free to unmute yourself and ask directly. If everybody can mute yourselves during the presentation so we don't have any background noise, that'd be great. We are recording this and we're also broadcasting it live to our Facebook group. So anybody can listen in and participate. And I'm very, very thankful to all of our past presidents who stepped up to give this presentation and who wanted to share with us the rich history of GGTC. Some of them were volunteered, so thank you for accepting the request. And we'll start it off with Charlie and with Duane, who were our founders. If you'd like to take it away and tell us how we got started.
Duane, I'll defer to you. I just happened to have answered the city sports flyer and was in the room that opening night. You're on mute, Duane.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. It's nice to see you. I was joking earlier before we went on that you guys all had it easy because you had pencils and paper to take care of this stuff. When we started it, we were just etching in stone. So anyway, so I guess the first thing I want to do is set the record straight. A lot of people think that I was the founder of the club, and that was simply not the case. I was one of the founding members. There was just a handful of us at the time, but in all fairness, if we had a founder, it would be Barry Naughton along with Chris Williams. Barry became the first president. Chris was the first vice president. And what I did, my role at that time was there was just a small group of us running around together at Kezar, and we knew that we wanted to put something a little more formal together and advertise. So we did put the advertisement in City Sports. And then I offered to host an organizational meeting because we had a conference in downtown San Francisco when I was the director of the health and fitness program at Chevron. So that's where a guy named Brian McMahon came in, and he laid down sort of first time I ever saw a PowerPoint presentation, by the way. But he put up sort of what he was proposing would be a structure with a president, a vice president, a run coordinator, swim, bike, and a social person at the time. So that's really how the club got started. That was 1991. So you could say it more or less was created around the track at Kezar. All right. Any acknowledgements on that?
We're all muted.
You're all muted. So Charlie, now I'll turn it over to you. I believe you probably came in around 2 years later, 93, 94, as I recall.
I was there that opening night. So there was 11 of us in Barry's living room, if I recall correctly. It would have been, Michael Saul, you, me, Kate Sweetman, Liz Spur, Todd Greenhall,
Karen Brown.
Karen Brown. Peter Lewandowski would have been some of the original crew. And it was, what we loved is there's many of us that had, Duane probably being the longest of us, but even in 91, some of us had been doing Wildflower for 4 consecutive years already. And it was really a grassroots. It was, we all wanted to mentor and build a community. And so it's just wonderful to see that that's here today. There was also a pretty big contingent of non-runners that some of us flail on the track. We were swimmers at USF. And so there was a pretty core USF Masters program group. And a lot of our meetings were there until they kicked us. They realized that not that many of us were alumni. So they kicked us out eventually, probably late 90s, and made us go find space. We also used to do a lot of space over at Lombardi Sports on Clement Street, which is now like, I think, a baby store or something right near Burma Superstar. And Vince Fasoni was like the manager there and gave us all a nice discount. But we used to use that spot for early meetings back in the days when we were, notching us into stones to share information.
And there was also a running store in the Hague called Hoyt, was it Hoyt Sports?
Hoy Sports.
Yeah.
Finelli.
We had the first, we'll call it the first end of the season party there. It was a little potluck and probably maybe 20 people, as I recall. That would have been 91. But then in 92, we had a huge bash at the Elks Club. A guy named Dennis Sullivan organized it. He was a member of the Elks Club. So we took it over. It's a rather large club. I can't remember. It's like the basement of some large hotel in downtown San Francisco. And Dennis and I organized that, and we were surprised to have over 140, 150 people, as I recall. And we just got hammered, and the microphone was too busy that night. We had music, and that was really the first true bash where you had awards and a lot of people showing up and having a good time. And the nice thing about the club is it's continued that tradition. At the end of the year, there's a good party.
I guess I can jump in. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask how many people were at the club. Those, well, I know the beginning was 11, but the first few years, how big did the club get?
Well, like I said, the second year we had over 120 people at that party, and some of them were future club members. They heard about it and they said, "I went in on this." And, misery loves company, as it is. So I think that party had a lot to do with building at the 93, because it grew really large from 92 to 93. 91 was probably 2 dozen. And then by 94, it was a couple hundred at least. One thing I also remember clearly is the first Wildflower training weekend. Now, I know that the newer members out there, probably haven't even heard of Wildflower. And that's really sad, to be honest, because Wildflower was sort of the iconic sport or the iconic event for triathletes, especially in California. But we did a training camp about a month before. And as most of you have experience attending the Wildflower training weekend, there are a couple hundred people that show up and it's quite a party. But the first year we did it, we had about 20 people at max, closer to 10 or 15. And I just remember putting 2 picnic tables together as we were camping, and that was where we had dinner, and that was the first time. And after that, it just continued to grow and became one of the most important events that the club would do on an annual basis.
What year was that, Duane?
That would have been 92. I want to say beginning of April 92. So approximately a month before Wildflower, which was always the first weekend in May, and fingers crossed it comes back.
And then it stopped when? A couple of years ago, Wildflower Camp, anyone know?
The camp, I think the camps more or less stopped when the triathlon kept getting canceled because of first the drought and then all kinds of different things. But hopefully it'll be back. And when it comes back, I expect the GGTC will be back at it and have the crazy dance competitions again.
Yeah, they've got it up on their website for this year.
Well, we have the next president on the line, so Brett, keep that in mind for next year.
I absolutely will. Absolutely will. I haven't done it myself. It's been cancelled since I got here, so I'd love to do it.
I'll just kind of jump in. I didn't move to San Francisco until 1993, and I swam at Corette, which is where I met Charlie and Todd. I don't know if Peter swam there. Duane definitely didn't.
No, but Peter did not swim. He waited till 3 weeks before every triathlon. Then he would do 200 repeats, about 5 or 6 of them. Then he'd come out of the water in 25 minutes. That was
Peter Lewandowski.
Yeah.
Yeah, he used to swim at the Bay Club. Peter Lewandowski, yeah.
Yeah, he had his clinic at the Bay Club. Like I said, 2 or 3 weeks max of swimming training
He
is
was
all
an
you
amazing
did.
runner. He was such an amazing runner
Wow.
that it
Yes, he
didn't
was.
matter.
He was.
could
He
just
was.
like be at the end and then fly by everybody. So I must have gotten pulled into GGTC by Charlie. I'm gonna put that on Charlie. And I don't know that I was super involved with the club right away because the job that I had to travel a lot. But at some stage, because I became president in 1997, but before that, my initial kind of first role of responsibility was sponsorship coordinator. And I remember that we had one of our primary sponsors was Stoker Bars, and you guys have most of you have never heard of that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we've heard of it.
Yeah. So Stoker, and I, did stuff with City Cycle, and I don't remember if we had a running shop. I don't even think Sports Basement existed yet. So
No, it did not.
yeah, so I was sponsorship director, and then I became vice president. So that might have been 96, I think. I don't know. I mean, you have to know that, and I'm guessing that with the way Duane described it, it was still pretty informal. We didn't have like official elections and stuff. I mean, I talked to 2 other former presidents this afternoon, and I was like, how did I end up being president? And they said, well, I think we were just hanging out in our living room, and, Tom Monica had been president for 2 years, and he was kind of done. And he was like, Lisa, are you up for it? I mean, there might've been like 7 of us sitting in a living room. And I was like, yeah, sure. And so there was no discussion of like, we need to have a female president. I mean, it goes without saying now that that was important, but it wasn't a consideration at the time. It was more like, you've been involved for a while, you've held positions of, I mean, you care, you care, and you want to give back, and you're,
President's talking.
yeah. And so I said, sure. And as I was saying to a couple of people before we got everybody else on, this was, and again, I'm going to date myself, but before Facebook and before social media platforms, and the way that we marketed the club was we printed newsletters, and we left newsletters at City Cycle and other running shops and stuff to get the word out to people about stuff we were doing, races coming up, and Wildflower, and we had track workouts. So we had some amazing coaches. I'd like to take credit for when I was president. I can't actually accurately say this to be true, but Patty Sue Plummer, who was an Olympian, was our track coach for a while, and that was incredible. But that was the most structured workout that we offered at the time, because we did do weekend bike rides, but it was harder to organize them without sort of social media and everybody being online. And so they were a little bit more informal. Looking back on it, I think that, I don't know if my being president helped bring more women into the club or into the sport, but we certainly needed more women. I mean, we had a core of some really intense, really, really good women, a few of whom even dipped their toes into the pro scene for a time, which was great. But I think one of the regrets I potentially have is not doing more to reach out to women who might have been wanting to try a triathlon and were too intimidated. I don't know. It seems so silly now because there's so many more options, but there weren't even a lot of race options for women at the time. Like I remember early series, like the Danskin series. Danskin sponsored a race series for women, and they made like really short distances so that they were doable, especially for, women who had work and moms. And so, when you think about how much triathlon's evolved, that's one of the things I think about being a woman. doing it. I don't race anymore, but I think it's more, there's so many more options for people, not just women, but particularly women who say, you know, hey, I want to set a goal, and it's maybe not even going to be an Olympic distance because that's too long. So that's one of the nice things. But I mean, I just think that the entertaining part for me is in watching how much the club has grown over the years and how organized you guys are. It's incredible and it's commendable. But we were a little more haphazard, just because we didn't have all the things available, all the tools available that you have now. So, and I don't remember so there was a guy who was president after me. I don't know how long it was. Yuko, when did you become president? I don't remember how many years after me until there was another.
Beginning of 2000, like 2001, 2002, I think.
So was it really 3 years after me before there was another female president?
Yeah, because I think after you was Bob Castaldi and then Brandon.
Okay, so yeah, so we've been few and far between.
Yeah,
I want to add.
You're right, because go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I just wanted to add, when you were talking about there have been some, you know, some very competitive women in the club. A lot of people don't realize that there was a woman, it might have been who you were referring to, but there was Michelle Deasy won the Hawaii Ironman triathlon first overall amateur female in 1999. And so she certainly put us out there. And there have been a couple others that were
Tori,
rather high achievements. Tori Valentine, that's right.
Maria Monica was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there have just been, which I think candidly for me as well, I mean, I was competitive, but I wasn't winning my age group overall at Ironman. So it was a little intimidating, you know, and I don't know. I think I just eventually had to find my own sort of slot and figure out what I was good at. But the great thing was, I mean, someone like Michelle was like so incredibly humble, and you'd never know, like she was, you know, she was pretty shy about the whole thing. So, you know, that made it easy. But we had some amazing athletes, still do. But I mean, it was cool. It kind of put us on the map for sure. So those are my memories back in the day.
And Lisa, we'll have you know the past 3 presidents have been women for GGTC.
Well, I've kind of kept track because I get all the correspondence, and it's been really good. I'm really happy.
And after Yuko, we had 2 more, Karen and Stephnee. So we have a good track record.
It's important. I'm glad I started a good trend.
You're a trailblazer, Lisa.
Yeah, right.
Own it.
Okay.
So thank you, Duane, Charlie, and Lisa. Are there any questions from any of the participants or anybody in the audience for GGTC in the 1990s? Feel free to unmute yourself or put any questions in the chat.
How many of you are still involved or doing triathlons?
Duane.
Well, this is my 41st consecutive season.
Oh my God.
May will be my 40th year since I did my first Ironman in 1982, and while I don't consider myself competitive anymore, my ultimate goal is to be able to do this in 11 years, and go back to Kona. That would be 50 years since my first Kona, and if I can do that, I know that I would be maybe not the first, but among 2 or 3, because I started when I was 23, and most of the people who would be 50 years later, now they're in their 70s, 80s, or even older than that if they're still around. So I was just fortunate to have started when I was young, and may have that opportunity here in 11 years.
That would be awesome, Duane.
That would be amazing.
We got a question for you from Dan Pierce. what was in the 1990s the most memorable song to work out to when you guys were leading the club?
That would have been like on my Sony Walkman, I think, at the
Right.
time.
There you
And it
go.
was probably like Van Halen or Def Leppard.
Good choices.
Oh, what was that song? Whip It. That was a good song.
Evo.
I don't race anymore. I've dabbled in ultras for a while, but I moved from San Francisco in 2004 to New Zealand for 5 years. And if I hadn't done that, I probably would have quit triathlon earlier. But being in a new country and seeing, just having new races to go to and new people to compete against was really cool. So, and I had some pretty serious success there, which was a lot of fun, and got to race for New Zealand in the World Championships, and that was cool. And then it was amazing how I knew when I was done. I was just like, I just hit the wall, and that was it. And Tim Yant at USA Triathlon's always kind of like, okay, so when's the comeback? And I'm like, I don't know. It's not happening. I don't think, but you never know.
You never know.
Lisa's the same girl who walked off the plane with me in Kona in '94 and
This
said,
is
I don't know
true.
why these crazy people do this. And then went
I
on to do
did.
like 6 Ironman Canadas, like
Did.
successfully, like every year, like sure,
I
Lisa.
got to that. I went to go
Yeah.
watch Charlie in Kona, and I got off the plane and I was like, this is just ridiculous. Why would anybody want to do a race this long? I mean, it's just crazy. And the next year he pretty much just threw that back in my face while we were in the airport waiting to go to Penticton.
Yeah, but
So-
to answer the question, I'm not racing anymore. I'm just riding bikes these days. That knees didn't hold up for me, so I miss it horribly. I see, like all of you get the credit card out. You want to sign up because you don't want to miss out on the lotteries or whatnot. But yeah, eventually I'll head back when my goddaughter goes to do Kona, and I'll go swim in Kailua Bay with her and get to go watch her in a few years.
That sounds great.
So Lisa, Ironman Penticton's back next year. You want to come race with us? We got about a dozen people, I think, from the club that are racing.
I see Jordan's note, and the answer is, and I know Jordan from non-triathlon stuff, so I love Penticton, but probably not. No.
Oh, come on, the
Walter-
Crown Motel. We
Walter-
can go get some salties. We can go hit Cog's Breath coffee.
I know this
Like,
is
let's go.
crazy, but I would rather do the quad dipsy next year than do another Ironman. And I've done the quad dipsy before, and it's painful, and I'd rather do that. I just
The quad
it's
dipsy,
a whole nother sickness. I've just sort of transferred the addiction and the sickness to something else. So
Walter, how many times have you done the race in Penticton Ironman Canada?
I've done it about 11 times. I've completed 9 times in Penticton, 2 times in at Whistler. So I've done total. I've participated in about 15 Ironman, and I completed 11. A couple times I had a couple of injuries, a couple of DNFs. So the story is, like, the more you do it, you are liable to have a DNF or some type of catastrophe. Such is the part of being an Ironman. I was going to say one thing. When I first joined the club, I remember they used to have a new users club. So so you're intimidated. You go up and you go, God, who do I talk to? Oh, there's a new users group. So you can ask all these stupid little crazy questions and things like that. So that was the one thing that was missing. But I think what's changed so much about GGTC is like there was always a center. Wildflower was always the center of this is the start of triathlon season. And together, we're going to start this race together because everyone did Wildflower. Then from then you went on, you did whatever you were going to do. Okay. But that was before MDOT. Okay. Now you have MDOT, MDOT's everywhere, and all these local triathlons are gone. So that's really sad. So, so that's what I kind of miss. I really miss going down. Start out with Wildflower, and we always ended up in Santa Cruz, the last race. We all got together. went down, met at the same Italian restaurant, had a lot of laughs, did the race, and then went home. And then that was the end of the triathlon season, you know. So I kind of miss those days. And I remember when we started, there were a lot of, at least 200 people that came to the meetings alone, you know. We were packed, you know, we bring in all the people. We had Wendy Ingram and who else? Julie Moss. I mean, the conversation with Julie Moss and Wendy Ingram together was like a comedy special, to be honest with you, you know. So, but that's the size of it. So I thought about, they actually sent me a note saying, oh, by the way, would you like, we have early registration for Penticton. I go, I don't think so. But it's good to see a lot of you people I haven't seen in a long time. So I was scanning through the people that are on the list here, and it's good seeing you people again. Are you guys coming to the 30th anniversary party?
Heck yeah.
Good. It'd be good to see you guys there. I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, Walter, Sonny, Mark, everybody, Duane, all of you. Good to see you.
I think it was Yuko that got me, because, hey, Walter, we need a running director. I go, I don't know about that. So we got there. Okay, you know, that's how I got on the GGC board. It was really interesting. Stephnee was on there, Yuko, and a couple other. That's how we knew David Green, Fernando, you know, and everyone remembered Mike McCormick's spin classes and his track workouts. Oh my God.
Hey, Walter, you're giving away our presentation.
Yeah, you're jumping ahead, Walter.
Oh, sorry.
Moving on to the 2000s now. Thank you, Duane, Charlie, and Lisa. We're going to move on
Thanks
to
for the intro,
2000s.
Walter.
And we also have Gary here too. So Gary is going to join in as well.
Yay, hi everyone.
So should we load up our
Please do. You can share your screen.
Presentation, Fernando?
Y2K.
Right.
Sorry, I was muted. So you can see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, who's taking the lead there?
Can you put it in presentation mode?
This is on Google slide thing. I haven't used this one before. Present. There you go.
All right, so I'll jump in here. So I'll bring us up to date. Beginning in 2001, it was really the fall of 2001. The club had about 300 members at that time, if I remember right. And the club found itself kind of in the midst of a dispute and disarray. There was a couple of feuding factions within the club. One of the factions went off and formed San Francisco or SF Tri Club. And at that time, there were a group of kind of diehard members, you know, those that bleed red and black, led by Yuko, who pulled a group of us together to kind of hash out the problems, figure out what was wrong, and really reform the club under kind of a new leadership team. So one of the members, Kathy Morgan, who convinced her employer, the Pillsbury law firm, to provide us with a lawyer, an associate lawyer named Mark Sundahl. And several of us kind of buried ourselves in a conference room at the Pillsbury law firm and decided that it would be best to form a real legal entity around the club. With 300 members, it was getting big. There was quite a bit of money going through the club at the time. We were co-managing Escape from Alcatraz with Tri-California and also providing volunteers for the Treasure Island triathlon. So, several $1,000s would come into the club each year from assisting Tri-Cal with those races. So what we did was we formed a nonprofit, a legal entity, and wrote out the bylaws and hashed out all the kind of rules that we thought the club should operate by, so that, you know, we wouldn't have disputes like we had in the past, set up formal bank accounts and really formalize things. And that really led to the first, I'd say, you know, official formalized elections. And so, you know, so that was in the spring of 2002. And so when we finally had our elections, and I think the very first ballot from that election, we'll see later in the slide deck, but what we ended up with, a group, and here we have it. Yuko was our president. Stephnee, who's with us today, was our web and newsletter director. So we still did have the paper newsletter. Kathy Morgan was our ex officio. Fernando was our bike director. Walter Lee, who you already heard, pre-announced his role as swim director. Actually, Walter was run. Mark Dolly was swim. Brent Young was our membership director and webmaster. Tamara Engel was our social director. Kimberly Bassino, what was Kimberly? She was our secretary, and I was treasurer. And so from there, you know, we carried on many of the traditions that we knew about, but we were all, most of us were fairly new to the club at that time. So we continued all the traditions that we had heard about, and some of us had participated in, and formed some new ones. And I think for the rest of the fun stuff, I'll let Stephnee, do you go next, or Fernando or Yuko? Who wants to tell us about the fun stuff now that all the legal stuff is over?
How about Steph talks about the logo?
Sure. So we had, I would say, a brand and a logo previously, and Duane, you could probably tell us how that began, but we thought it was time to upgrade. And thanks to Katie Evans, at the time, designer, basically redesigned and created the GGTC brand as I think it stands today. So at that point, we also came up with a formalized communication program, which was an email list. At that time, that was big. We could actually post bike rides and swim events and training programs, right? If it was raining, we could say, that's it, we're going, or not. We applied that to, of course, race kits and all sorts of things that we would sell at events. And let me tell you, it was red, white, and black at every Wildflower and every Alcatraz, as far as you could see. And at that time, the club grew, and we were probably, how many members, you all, at that point, I think?
I think when we started, like Dave said, it was around 300. And when we finally left the board, not the club, I think 4 years later, as a whole, I think the club doubled in size. I think we were about 600 people by the time we left.
100. So from that point, we kind of built that base level of communication and kind of organizing. And from there, we also were evolving our programs, the training programs. And Fernando, you can kind of take it from here.
Sure. I think the theme, the overarching theme of those early years is formalizing. So the same way that we incorporated, we formalized bylaws, elections, money, all that, we start to formalize the training programs. That includes the activities themselves, but also formalizing relationships with coaches, sponsors. So really making sure that we were a company, a nonprofit, but a company, well organized, well ran. And I guess that's why we end up growing so much through those years. But I think most of it was fun. I think that, I mean, everybody can read the bullet points, and you can ask questions if you have any of those. But at the end of the day, first is continuing the traditions. Like Dave said, like the club was great when we joined, and we just try to get it to the next level but it was already a great club. And more
That's
than
why we
this,
worked hard to bring it to formalization and to dispose of the dispute that had happened.
yeah. Yeah, there was a little hiccup there, but on the 30-year history, there was literally a little hiccup. But more than the formal programs, which we did and we organized, and if we didn't create it, again, we formalized, making sure that everything was documented. There was a plan. There was a guiding document through the administration and throughout the year and throughout the season, and the official GGTC races and the official training programs. But more than that, it was a lot of fun. And I think there is the social aspect. This is one of the famous M2 spin classes. As you can see, a lot of sweaty people in a very small room. I don't think that changed throughout the years. Well, maybe changed now the last couple of years, but yeah, I guess you wouldn't see this right now, huh? Yeah, well, maybe one day. But a lot of it was social. I think after every track workout at Kizor, I don't remember ever leaving without going to a bar with some people and having a drink. It was part of it. So yes, triathlons and racing and all that, but I think a lot of it was joining a community, having fun, meeting new friends. I think especially from, let's say, our group, a lot of us, and I'm not exaggerating, end up finding partners, having kids. Like I remember this whole team here joining. We're all single, we're all having fun. And suddenly we all found people inside GGTC, and marriages started happening, kids started happening. It was a fun time, while taking it very seriously and eventually racing. So Wildflower, just fun fact about Wildflower. Like everybody said, it is the beginning of our season. It is the official race where everybody used to do it, all that. And the training weekend, it was a core event. And at the time, myself, some other unemployed people, Dave, or semi-employed, the whole thing about the race was, well, not the whole thing, but different groups would go early and get campsites. And we got to the point that we would arrive there Tuesday before the race with a car full of tents from every GGTC member. And then we'd spend the next couple of days just pitching everybody's tents and making sure that GGTC had the campground that it used to be our campground always. And I think it was H or G. I don't know if we did that later on, but it was fun.
You're our heroes.
What?
You are our heroes for doing that.
Well, we're unemployed, so that helped.
There were a lot of tents.
There was a lot of tents, and there was one year in particular where it basically it rained every day. So that was fun. At least when people arrived, their tent was pitched and dry inside, and but it was fun. Like again, the community. It wasn't just the racing. It was the friendships and that's why suddenly we're all here, right? We still know each other. We still come together. We still do this phone call. I don't think anyone had I'm not gonna do that. That's my past life. I don't think GGTC stays in the past. Maybe racing stays in the past, but I don't think GGTC does. And there is David. That was us collecting tents to go to the to Wildflower. And
can I interrupt real quick, Fernando?
Sure. Yes,
we have
absolutely.
a lot of new members in the club who don't even know what Wildflower is or training weekend, because we haven't had it since 2019. Would you guys maybe elaborate a little bit on Wildflower Training Weekend and why it's so important to GGTC?
Sure. I'll start, and please, everybody else pitch in. But the story of the Wildflower, the race itself, which they say it's more than a race, is the Wildflower experience. It's a whole weekend. There's all kinds of distances. There's a festival. And it's at a Lake San Antonio, which is different than the normal triathlon. And what happens is everybody, pretty much everybody, camps at Lake San Antonio for the race weekend. So there is really no hotel nearby. It's right by the lake. And it becomes this big, I think they used to call it the Woodstock of triathlons, which is everybody's camping, everybody's partying. And the Olympic distance people were always pissed at the long course people because we would race first and then we're getting drunk and they're trying to sleep. So they would race the next day. So there was always a little bit of arguing there, but friendly. But in terms of the relationship between Wildflower and GGTC, first, Tri-California that puts Wildflower, it used to be a very good partner with GGTC. We used to provide a lot of support to their local races. They used to manage Escape from Alcatraz and Treasure Island. And then they had also Pacific Grove, Wildflower, and probably some others that I'm forgetting. But we were, let's say, the official club. We used to provide the race directors. We used to be responsible for providing most of the volunteers for all their local races. And in return, we'll get race slots, we'll get things like that. So the relationship between the companies, GGTC and Tri-California, were established. The training weekend, hopefully will be, again, a GGTC tradition, which is, is the beginning of the season, and the whole club, the vast majority of the club would participate. I think we were about 200 people coming down to Lake San Antonio a month or two before the race for a training weekend. And as you can imagine, there was some training and a lot of partying. This picture here, I think, is from a training weekend. I think we have some more training weekend. It just used to be a lot of fun, and almost like triathlon was an excuse, but we're having a great time here. And eventually racing.
Cabins. Tell them about the cabins, Fernando.
Oh, right. Yes. So the good thing so during the race, everybody camps. The cabins down by the lake, there's about 10 cabins by the lake, and those are used by staff, right? Tri-California, etc. So during a race weekend, everybody's just camping. But during training weekend, we were able to rent those cabins. So it was like having our own Wildflower in like luxury style. Instead of tents, we had our cabins. I think at one point we outgrew the cabins. So we had cabins and people on tents because we're just too big. But it was fun. Maybe we have pictures from there. All that. Oh, good old logo here on the screen. That was right before we revamped the logo. And you can see Stephnee here with the Treasure Island Triathlon shirt. By the way, I did caught a couple of pictures with like pagers and things like that. So this is Wildflower, campgrounds. Oh my God, that is me. Very young me. This is the cabins that we're talking about right by the lake. It is like Walter mentioned, right? It's missed. If it's not there, it's missed because it was, that's the cabin inside. So luxury before, and hey, Dave, there you go.
Training hard.
Just always lots of fun, lots of food. Of course, we're not drinking or anything because we're training. We're very serious about it.
We were very serious because there was team competition at Wildflower Weekend.
Yes.
True. True. So all those pictures from training week, and it's a great start of the season. It's gets everybody ready to go, and it was huge. I think Wildflower had like 7,000 people competing. So you can imagine the amount of people camping, and it's can't really describe if you don't go there. So hopefully you will be back, and it will still be a big part of the GGTC program. And yeah, all those are either, I guess those are race pictures, there are medals, they're not the training weekend. Yep. Who's going to talk about training programs?
Come on, Steph, tell us about Try and Give.
Yeah,
There we go.
I think, one thing about the evolution of triathlon, Lisa, I liked what you were saying about more and more women joining. And I think the other thing during this time period would be just kind of more and more athletes coming into triathlon that maybe necessarily weren't elite like myself, that weren't podium athletes. And so we really developed these training programs for people of all levels of the club. And that included for Alcatraz. We also integrated Ironman. And then in 2002, also at the very beginning, team and training was big. And so we determined, hey, maybe as a club, we should also begin a program that's giving back to the community. So these are all escape pictures. Sorry, I'm not following slides, Fernando. But
I'm looking for the Try and Give here.
Yeah, we always had, as they said previously, we were race directors for Alcatraz, supporting the event. A lot of volunteers on the day of, and just really representing the club. We did the same for Treasure Island. Race director for that as well, and always volunteering. And then here's the Try and Give program. So Brent Young and I established that in 2002 as a way to give back to the community. And at that time it was for Special Olympics. Duane, of course, you were our coach for that, was fantastic. Various clinics, workout clinics, coached workouts. And then also with a lot of support from our other coaches. And I think it was really phenomenal. We had a great turnout, and then it became a repeat year after year, and was known as TAG.
Is it still going on?
Do you all do community kind of fundraising, charitable event? I don't know if you do, Kimi.
We haven't. We do use our Ollie program to raise money for our nonprofit, but I think we kind of have moved away from calling it Try and Give, but that you give a grant to a nonprofit that we choose every 2 years, and it's the Boys and Girls Club for the next 2 years. So
nice.
But we don't have any specific events around it.
If I can jump in real quick, I have a photo from the first Try and Give right after the race. And as Stephnee said, it was Stephnee and Brent Young who came up with the concept of doing they called it a newbie club. And they asked me if I would coach it. And I said, well, I'll coach it, but I think we should do it as a charity program. So all the money that we raise should go to a charity, and the Special Olympics was named the benefactor of that particular year. And I said, and I don't want any money to coach, but I do want a free entry for Alcatraz and Wildflower, which I got. So that's when I became a professional coach. But I have this photo. I don't know if you can see it. Is my camera working?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a 2002 Try and Give, and you can see that I think Fernando and Karen are both in this photo because they were the two assistants. They were like the assistant coaches that kept people, kept us organized.
And you're right, Duane, all the coaching was volunteer based, and it would really allowed people to kind of intro into the sport. It was great. Love it.
Oh, there's some pictures here.
And there is no Treasure Island race, correct, currently?
No Treasure Island. No Tri-Cal.
That's right. That's correct. So all the local races like J Productions, Tri-California, they're all gone. So, so that's everything's MDOT now, so.
Yep.
So it makes it kind of difficult because, MDOT where are you going to go? And then that's how the club breaks out, because they get a group and say, okay, well, who's doing Penticula? Okay, we'll get together. You go train together, okay? But you don't see the other part of the club, I don't think. But it's pretty much been broken down into that. Whereas like before, MDOT didn't control the tri-community as it does today, where you have the local races. You go to Santa Rosa, you did the you did the races
Vineman.
up there, and I miss those. The Vineman, the great Vineman races, the
Vineman,
great
half
Kahuna,
Vineman.
all those races are gone. Okay, so
Yeah.
it makes it very different. So the thing you probably think is, okay, well, if there's no wildflower, why don't we have our own wildflower, or something like that, something local, and that might be something that you might want to throw up in the beginning to get everything started. But once you get into the MDOT and you start training for certain thing, you're in your own world is what it's come down to. So it makes it very difficult. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, great point.
So as Walter had mentioned, the season used to start when Wildflowers started, and then when we came, the club became so popular and our monthly meetings were so popular, we had to we didn't have enough monthly meetings, so the season started getting earlier and earlier. And I think the year we had Mark Allen come in and the coaches Huddle and Frey, our meetings moved down to February, and we would we met. They presented at the Four Seasons, and then we went to Fort Mason, and then where else we went? And then we ended up to Sports Basement. So we had 5-time Ironman Mark Allen come in to speak, which was a big draw. And then Julie Moss and Wendy Ingram came. I think a month later, we had Chris McCormack, who was a really good Olympic distance triathlete who turned into the Escape from Alcatraz champion, and then he went on to Ironman. And then we had local, we had a sports psychologist, we had, Hal, I think Hal's on here too, talking about efficiency, right? And then we had sponsorships. Just go back one slide maybe. So we would get discounts from, because we had such a big group, we were able to get discounts from brands that really wanted to, infiltrate our triathlon scene. And we had Kinesis. We had a really good deal with Native Eyewear. I don't know if Shower Pass still exists, but it was a really good bike gear. And then we had a kickoff of the season with, tables and booths from all these sponsors and people who are connected to the club. And then I guess finally, things that haven't changed is the year-end party. I don't know if anybody recognizes Andy Baldwin there in the middle. He's like the bachelor turned triathlete turned bachelor. And Michael McCormack, he won't let you forget he's 2-time Ironman Canada champion. But he was our coach for Spin and parts of the Muffin Ride.
Oh my God, H2. Wow.
Yeah, Holden.
H2.
Yeah.
There was H2 who was Holden. He was like one of the greatest swimmers in our club, right? He was tall. He was a great swimmer. So we called him H2. And then you had M2, which was Michael McCormack.
Yeah.
Those are vintage.
Oh, totally. They're not even digital, right? So
yeah, we had to really dig those up.
So that's it. I think it just came down to we were talking about how, a lot of us met our spouses. made lifelong friendships. You know, we're still connected to this day, even though we may not be as active and haven't done triathlon in a long time.
Yeah, so that's 2 decades of GG.
Very fond memories.
That was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for putting that together. I'm going to save any questions for the end if you guys don't mind hanging around, and we're going to move on to the 2010. So there we have Chris Douglas and John Branderhorst, and I will pin them up in just a second. Hi, John.
You can go first, John.
All right. We don't have a PowerPoint. Apologies. All our pictures are on Facebook and Instagram. So if you guys want to see the past, you can go on one of those social media channels that was around when we joined the club. Now, this has been really exciting, interesting, great to see a lot of friendly faces. I was president, I think, 10 years ago for a couple of years, and I recognize some folks who were before and after me. Kimi wanted me, or requested that I talk a little bit about the creation of the ambassador team, because a lot of the cool thing is it's been interesting to see where some of these things started, like Wildflower Training Weekend, which was literally the only time I would let loose when I was president, pretty much, and boy did I. But the ambassador team, that was kind of my one of my last things that I worked on before stepping down, and it was. And all of the people who have been on the board before realize that there's never enough people to help. Running this organization is definitely something that we should get paid for, to be honest. It's so much work when you have 300 to 600 type A successful people who are doing triathlons, right? No, but that's kind of the reason we started the ambassador program, was to get more support partially, but to also provide kind of a support system, not only for the newbies and people that just wanted to kind of like do different workouts throughout the week, but also create an opportunity for some of the fast athletes. So I know that, you know, Golden Gate started out with a lot of really fast athletes or pros. And by the time I was kind of getting more involved with Golden Gate, I'll be honest, we were losing a lot of kind of the top tier athletes, the people that were winning races. I mean, I met a lot of the people on this on Golden Gate, partially thanks to being part of Team Pacific Bicycles, which was connected to Golden Gate. But you know, we were losing people through some of those other smaller, more elite, I would say, teams. And so it has pivoted here and there throughout the last 10 years, and I'm excited to see that it's still around. Couple other things. We haven't talked about it, but I know Chris may talk about it a little bit. Chris and I were talking earlier about how both of us race dues for Golden Gate because the value you get from joining the club is just, for the amount you're paying, it's just so much, right? So there's so much you're getting. And then the other thing that I was super proud of was making track free. So you didn't have to deal with the punch cards or keeping track if you didn't pay for the annual pass and things like that. So that's all I got. And so Chris, you take it away, sir. You took over for a couple of years there too.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think you adequately covered everything that you did for the club. I joined the club when you were president, and I think a lot of people who joined around that time, you know, their vision of the club is essentially the one that you were expounding. And I think that's probably true for all previous presidents as well. I've always thought the position as president is essentially being the chief steward of the club, because the club is just an idea. And if, you know, people stop believing in that idea, people stop stepping up to take board positions, you know, it just fades away. There really isn't anything keeping it together except the people. So when I was president, I think some people might think I was either a really popular president or really hated president by some of the things that happened in my tenure. But I think what I'm most proud of that we achieved, and I think Sam, who couldn't be here tonight, I'm subbing in for him, did, is we really started seeing the club in a way of like, well, how do we keep making sure that everyone's really happy in the club? and satisfied with what's being offered and started listening to members in a very deep way. And Sam, when he was president, he did this member survey, which to me was very profound about member satisfaction. And I don't remember all the details because it was a long time ago, but essentially the takeaway from the survey was people were really satisfied with the club if they attended more than 2 events per week. So I kind of took that and ran and be like, all right, well, what can we do to get people to show up? Track is very popular, but what can we do on the other side? So just started making more offerings. We hired a strength coach who were doing that. We had a trail running program. We had weekday swims that were at a public pool that you could sign up for. And then we added a weekend swim. The other thing I'm really proud of is just we sort of coordinated all of the training programs. Before it used to be HIT and then then tag. And those programs were pretty siloed. So we changed the names of them and kind of reconstituted them. So all the coaches were essentially in communication. And Duane, you were part of these conversations when this was happening. So you can chime in if you have anything to add, but essentially we wanted to help the members as best as we could. And we thought the way to do that was to have them have access to coaches, even if they weren't part of a training program. So, there's be these amazing moments where someone would have a training question of some kind. And and then basically all the coaches would chime in on what would be the best way to handle that. So it's like, oh yeah, you should sign up for HIT and and make sure you show up for strength and do that twice a week. And it was a beautiful moment to see all the coaches working together to make sure that the members were taken care of. I also presided over the last Wildflower training weekend, which is kind of a bummer because the following year there was a severe drought, and all the pictures you saw of that lake being full, imagine it being empty. And that was pretty much what we were dealing with, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, I think, what I always love about the club, and I love hearing the old stories because they're the same stories as now. I feel like the club, this could just as easily be a ping pong club. And it's really the personalities and the connections and the relationships that are made. One of the things I'm most proud of is while I was president, 8 people got married who had met in the club while I was president, which is, I'm very, very proud of that statistic. Best friends of my life. I just officiated John's wedding a couple months ago. One of my favorite days ever. And I don't know if anyone has anything specific they want to hear about our decade. Feel free to ask.
Before we open it up to questions, I actually want to highlight Mr. Jeff Farrell here, who brought us all together. He's the reason that I was able to reach out to all of the presidents and get this event going. So Jeff, thank you so much. And Jeff has been known for many decades in the club, and still is very well known and very well loved within the club.
And I'll say this, and I've said this to Jeff's face, and I'll say it in front of everyone here. He's my all-time favorite GGTC member, right there. Close second, Walter Lee, but Jeff Farrell, number one.
Two legends.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
And awesome beings.
Yeah. Oh, hello, everybody. Hi, Karen. And Yuko, everybody. Wow. I guess just thank you guys, all the presidents, for running things. I've sort of just been hanging on all the years, and just very much appreciate you guys. Yeah, just doing all that work year after year after year. Chris, you mentioned Wildflower training weekends. That was something else. I heard M2's name. I remember track with M2. I remember trying to, I didn't join the club until 1998, but I thought I wanted to do triathlon. So I actually went to a practice in 1995 and met at the polo fields. I showed up on a mountain bike. I think Duane Franks was there with like 5 Ironmen, and they asked me if I was going to kick their ass on a mountain bike. And I said no, but and then it took me a while to get with the triathlon program, because it's just sucks up your life. But just no, guys, thank you. I'm so proud to be still part of it, and so lucky to be meeting all these new people and getting to hang with the veterans as well. So thanks, guys. And that's all I have to say. Hope to see you out there.
And with that, let's open it up. Anybody have any questions? If not, I guess I have.
Oh, sorry, Kimi, this is Stephnee. I have a question. John, I like, kind of your point about, running the club as a full-time job in most cases. So how have you all kind of evolved that? Because, I've been a part of other volunteer organizations, and that's always the hard part, right? Is not just the engagement, but getting people to come together and to help. So how have you done that, I guess, Kimi, the last few years for GGTC in keeping it going?
Ooh, that's a really hard question, especially with COVID. That was very challenging for all of us. And there's a lot of board members here that are present tonight. And honestly, we really worked well together as a team. I think the most important thing is just relying on each other and working together towards the common goal. And everything that you guys have started in Golden Gate is near and dear to everybody who's currently on the board and will be leading the board in the future, all the new members that are present here. This is not just a club, it's our community, it's our family. And we really, really love it. It means a lot to us. And I think that's having that and learning that. I joined when Chris was president, and I feel like I learned that from him, and I knew John too. They had that passion and that desire for the club, and it really instilled in me, and I believe it instilled in a lot of people that are currently members, and it's just being passed down. So it doesn't feel like a part-time job. It feels like a passion. And, my job is my job, but this means something to me. And so that's why it doesn't feel like it's work. Any other board member want to?
Well, I would agree with everything that Kimi said, except that sometimes it does feel like work, just a little bit. just being honest.
I'll say something. Is this better?
Can I get rid of the phone?
We're showing GGTC couple over here. We're showing both of our screens. I just wanted to say something, and I've been on the board with Kimi now these past 2 years, and just to let you guys know, she's done a fantastic job as president, and she's not giving herself enough kudos. I mean, when you ask Stephnee about keeping the community, I mean, we were people's savior during COVID. I mean, Kimi and team created the GGTC triathlon. I mean, we created a race when races didn't even exist. So it's been, it's been a challenging few years, but we've had to be creative with it. And that's from anything from social events to run events to community events to getting Zoom bombed on a happy hour, different things like that you don't expect. But I think we've been resilient and still had, as Kimi mentioned, the passion, the community, that's here, and still been able to, even now there's Zwift. I don't know when Zwift started. I never did Zwift before last year, but we've been able to adapt and create a community despite COVID, despite wildfires and those other things. So, I mean, Kimi's led the charge, and I think the board's done a great job to try to continue the theme. And as Lisa alluded, I was super thrilled to join the club and find out that she was the president years ago. And I hope we've made you guys a little bit proud and thrilled to see you guys, hopefully at the 30th. But it's been a fun tradition to carry on. And I think we all consider each other kind of a triathlon family too.
So as a note timer, you guys have really done a great job. I mean, I'll be very honest with you. I would never, ever go down and do
Walter's saying something,
swimming.
but I think he's on mute.
No, I unmuted myself. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we heard you, Walter.
Okay. I'm just saying you guys did a great job. I mean, the swim program was great. We show up there, and for the first time in my life, on all my training, I show up every week to do open water swimming in that cold bay. So that says a lot right there.
And you take good pictures.
Yes. You guys need more publicity. You need to publicize that. And so I'm glad I took those pictures.
I will say one of my crowning achievements as president would be the Tuesday night open water swims. I mean, it's probably, I don't know if the swim directors would agree with that sentiment, but I started it when I was a swim director, and I'm glad that all these years later, that's still a thing.
Thank you.
Probably the only way you'll get people out in the bay, Chris. Do it as a group. Any other questions, comments? If not, I think we're over time. So I really want to thank everybody for participating. Thank you so much for all of our presidents that are all across the country who joined in tonight. I know it's past some of your bedtime, so thank you so much for joining. We hope that you guys can make it to our 30th anniversary party, which will be on November 6th, thanks to Jordan. And again, I can't thank you enough for all you did and all you brought to us with GGTC. It really means a lot to me, and it means a lot to our community.
Well, thank you for advancing the club. It sounds like it's alive and very healthy. So well done.
Well done. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you all. Good seeing everyone again.
All right.
We should do this again.
Keep on trying.